nobody's going to say Joe Woods called a great game, right? But should their best defensive player be insinuating that? What did Myles Garrett say after the game? And Mary Kay, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I just heard too many times him saying that, we didn't make adjustments. We didn't make sideline adjustments. We didn't make halftime adjustments. And I just don't think now is the time to be talking like that. This, once again, is a very tight race. There are 3 teams in the AFC North that have 5 victories. They are 1 game behind the Ravens. I mean, they're 1 victory behind the Ravens, who are 6-3 right now. And they have 2 games coming up against those Ravens after next week. And as I mentioned before, the Ravens looked really bad in a loss to the Dolphins. So I still think everything is right there for the taking. I don't think that life is as bad as it seems right now for the Cleveland Browns. I think they can get it turned around. And I think things might look a lot different over the next couple of weeks. Again, going up against a pass defense that's horrible right now in the Ravens twice. Therefore, I don't think it's time for Myles Garrett to sort of be insinuating that they are not making the proper defensive adjustments, because that goes zing in my mind. And to me, that's sort of like calling out the coaching staff for not making the proper adjustments. I don't think he's calling out Anthony Walker. I don't think he's calling out John Johnson 3. I think he's saying Joe Woods isn't telling us the right thing to do now. Like, what do we do? Tell us what to do. Show us on the Microsoft Surface. Help us change it up. So I just think that is in-house laundry. I don't think it should be said publicly like that. And Dan, I was trying to figure out what game did he say it after previously this season? And it was about the halftime adjustments. Was it the Chargers? I can't remember the game. I have to go back and look it up. And it was post-game. But I just, that kind of talk at a time like this sort of doesn't feel right to me. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about my take on that.
It does feel like Myles holds himself to a very high standard. And I think he then holds everyone around him to that same standard. And I think if he feels like he's sort of meeting his own standard and people around him are not meeting their standard, I think he gets frustrated. And I get that. And he's not coming in, kicking over tables and swearing and going crazy. So, I mean, Mary Kay, you've covered the league a long time. Like on some level, he's right. I don't know if truth is a defense here. Team's best defensive player says coach fails to make adjustments as defense is steamrolled for 45 points. Like, it's true. Is it helpful? I don't know, but he's also called 2 players only meetings this year, which have been helpful. So if this is part of Myles asserting leadership on the defense, but he does it in multiple ways. Hey, we're going to have a players meeting. Hey, I'm going to demand more of myself. Hey, we're going to demand more of the defensive line. Hey, I'm going to demand more of my coordinator. I think if it folds in to a larger picture, it's okay. But I understand the point you're making of, like, after you just got beat up like this, like right now, maybe not great. I don't know. Does anybody else have like a strong take either way on whether Myles should or shouldn't be saying, or not even quite saying, but insinuating that?
I mean, I think it's kind of what you got at towards the end there. Like, the message might be right? Like, no one's saying Joe Woods called a perfect game today. And if you did, you didn't watch probably. But but I think it's the avenue you take to get that message across. I don't know if hinting at it in a post-game press conference when you just lost as bad as you did and could not stop the team you were playing from what they were doing on offense, I don't know that you have the right to place the blame publicly like that on your coordinator. I think you can do that and demand more of Joe Woods as the star player of this defense, but not do it in a press conference. That's kind of my take, and agreeing with Mary Kay.
Do we think Myles is speaking only for himself?
No.
That would be my first question.
I don't think he gets up there and says that if he is speaking only for himself.
That's kind of my first thought. This is your guy, and Ashley, you and I were talking before we came on. I'm like, Myles has gotten paid. He's the Browns' best defensive player. He's happy in Cleveland. He loves it. He feels comfortable finally in Cleveland. And so he kind of has turned off that filter. I think we've seen that a number of times this year.
Mhm.
I don't
Like-
necessarily, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, to go back a couple weeks ago when he's talking about the OBJ situation and he's saying, I wish there had been more communication between the front office and the players about what's going on. And like, yeah, he didn't come out and directly say, I'm blaming Andrew Berry for this. But at the same time, it's like he clearly wasn't happy. And on one hand, like, I get it, that's his friend, like he wishes he knew more, etc. But at the same time, it's like, I also get where the front office is coming from in that this is a fluid situation. By the time we hit Wednesday, things had spiraled beyond control with OBJ. And Myles is getting up and kind of expressing his opinion very much so without a filter. Like, it just is, there's a time and a place. And, obviously those quotes were newsworthy and we reported on them when they happened. Like we had a responsibility to do that, I think. But at the same time, it goes back to, was that the proper way to go about that? I don't know what the answer is for sure. But, we've seen this a handful of times now just in the last like 2 weeks from him.
Yeah, and so I don't disagree that maybe it wasn't maybe it's not the appropriate time. Like I don't disagree with that premise. At the same time, this has probably been building, right? This has probably been something that like, and you mentioned it, Mary Kay. I don't remember exactly what game it was either, but obviously there's something off right now. And I think last week a lot got masked because they forced a bunch of turnovers, but that's just not going to happen. That doesn't happen in the NFL. You don't have games like last week over and over again with a bunch of turnovers and a 99-yard pick six. And I mean, I hate to say this, the Browns have put together some good defensive performances, but I'm not blown away by any of the games you would point at and say, man, the defense put up good numbers and they played well in that game. I'm not necessarily, outside of that Cincinnati game, blown away by any of them. We're talking about Justin Fields in his first start. We're talking about a Steelers offense that is basically based around Ben Roethlisberger underthrowing guys and then making adjustments in midair. I don't know. This defense, there has only been 1 point this season where it's impressed me, and it was last week. And I think, yeah, there's a discussion to be had about whether he should have done it, but I don't think we should let that overshadow the fact that maybe this defense is more broken than we thought, because a lot of good things happened a week ago against Cincinnati, but now Josh McDaniels just exposed everything.
Well,
I hope people